Coming to the criminal law section. Thank you all for joining us for Coffee Talk on a Friday morning. My name is Shally Katana, and I'm the MSBA Director of Member Experience and Programs. We're very thankful that you all are joining us today remotely. We have several of the MSBA leadership and staff on the call as well. We'd like to start by giving you a bit of background on what we've been up to. And during the call, we'd ask that if you're not speaking, if you could just mute your microphone by clicking on the lower left corner of your screen on the microphone, click it red. If you have questions during the meeting and you'd like to send those in, you can click on the chat box in the upper right-hand corner. We already have a few messages posted here. And Angela's just shared a very helpful Chrome extension, if you're viewing this in your browser, that gives you the sort of Brady Bunch view so you can see everybody that's on the call all at once. So I'd like to turn things over to our director, Executive Director Victor Velasquez, to start us off. Thanks, Vic.
Well, good. Thank you, Shally, and good morning, everybody. By the way, for anybody who clicks that link, you'd have to come out and refresh and go back into the meeting for you to actually see that grid. What I'm looking at are 6 people per row, 4 rows, so I'm seeing everybody at the same time, which is a nice way to take a look at it. Thanks for being here with us. I only have a few comments. The team is prepared to provide more information, but I'm going to share some broad strokes this morning. And again, thank you for participating. You know, it was just a few months ago that the MSBA fought successfully legislation against the taxation on legal services. That encompassed a multi-pronged effort. We marshaled up resources. We had hundreds of attorneys reaching out. We had a full court press with social media activity, communicating to the public, communicating to our members, certainly testifying, holding press releases, partnering with the Chamber of Commerce. We were just about to place an ad in all of the major papers to communicate how negative taxation of legal services would be, from the solo practitioner all the way to the largest firms who would no longer be competitive in an environment where their work is coming from all over the country, and they're competing against firms all over the country and the world, in fact. And of course, the adverse impact to the public. That bill did not make it, and we did not publish those ads, but we had a significant effort on behalf of the profession. And then it felt like mere minutes later, we turn around and now we're pivoting to respond to COVID. Over 7,000 attorneys have participated in our webinars, live and on demand. We've worked extensively with judiciary. At this point, we've got 170 to 200 questions that have gone to the judiciary, the Office of Labor Counsel, the Governor's Office. We'll be speaking to Chief Judge Berdar at noon today. We've been working with our partner specialty and local bars, and we have a pretty comprehensive webpage. Again, a lot of this detail you'll get from the team, but really we want to make sure that we continue our outreach. We want to make sure that even though sections cannot meet, that you take advantage of these opportunities to meet virtually. We held our first virtual board meeting in January. Not that we knew that COVID was coming, but because it was an opportunity for us to test being virtual, a statewide organization that has board members coming from all over the state. It was successful, and we have now been over a month as a complete staff team in a remote operation. So before I turn it over back to Shally, I just really want to express my appreciation for the participation on listservs, for engagement with us, for CLE, webinars, information. We've stepped up our communications on a weekly basis. We're putting out more postings on the listservs themselves. I say listservs with air quotes. I'm not supposed to call them listservs. And so we're trying to make a pretty comprehensive response overall. So before I turn it back over to the talented team that's making it all happen, does anyone have any comments or questions for me about any of those just big picture broad strokes that I've just shared? And you can do that via the chat and or just go off of mute. All right, it appears not. There's 25 or so on this call, so thanks again. And Shally, back to you.
Thanks, Vic. I'd like to turn now to Andrea Terry, Director of Learning, to give us an update on webinars and online learning platforms.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Shally. I appreciate everybody joining us on a Friday morning. As Vic mentioned, we've had 7,000 plus attorneys participate in the webinars that we've put on since the pandemic impact has begun to be felt by the legal community. This month alone, in the just over 2 weeks, we've done 10. And I really appreciate the sections that have been contributing. We started off with the labor and employment law section, estates and trust, elder law, ADR. ADR's done 2 sessions, and the tax section has done 2 webinars. And if you've identified any particular impact or topic that has really hit close to home with your practice area, please contact me at andrea@msba.org. And I'd be happy to discuss how we can support you in doing a webinar. We handle all of the logistics, the tech support, we do practice runs, we do all the promotion, handle registrations, and we just rely on you for the content, really. And we rely on you for guidance to let us know what exactly is impacting your practice area. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Shally.
Thanks, Andrea. We also have Richard Montgomery, Director of our legislative issues, on this call. Richard, could you give us an update?
Thank you, Shally, and good morning, everyone. To sort of tag on to the end of what Andrea was talking about, we've been very pleased with the interaction we've had back and forth electronically with the membership. And Shally's coordinated packaging just a huge array of questions back and forth with the judiciary, and those have been packaged very nicely to get the judiciary's answers out and their administrative orders. Similarly, we've conducted the same type of effort with the Governor's Office of Legal Counsel. So we've been trying to package, hopefully, like a set a week of questions to get to the Governor's Office of Legal Counsel on a variety of issues affecting the sections, the practice, local and specialty bars, and that sort of thing. We've also worked with the Governor's Office of Legal Counsel and selected members of the legislature on some executive orders. There have been 2 that we were heavily involved with, one dealing with remote notarization, which basically sped up the effective date of an act that was pending that had been passed by the General Assembly in 2019. There was sort of a companion executive order that dealt with remote witnessing for estate planning documents. There's a third one that we're expecting very, very soon that both the MSBA and the business community have been very concerned about, and that is an executive order dealing with the scope of local executive orders. Basically, we believe the executive order is going to say something to the effect that local orders can exceed the requirements of governor's executive orders, but cannot conflict with those. We expect that hopefully today. But a lot of the practice areas have been concerned about that because of businesses that they represent. I've also served as the point person on the MSBA on the Maryland Chamber of Commerce's COVID-19 work group, and I'll have a blog coming out about that concerning yesterday's meeting, which was a pretty packed meeting. One of the issues that's coming up in the next few days is going to be dealing with Governor Hogan's plan for the criteria to be considered, just the criteria to be considered for the quote-unquote reopening of the economy. As many of you know, the governor had ordered, well, it was really through the school superintendent, the schools be closed through April 24th. Well, that's next week. So we're expecting something from the governor, probably extending that date into May, most likely. So just generally speaking, that's kind of what we've been doing from the legislative government relations end, but we expect to continue contact with the sections, the legislature, the governor's office, and the local and specialty bars.
Shally, if I could jump in and say also, along the same lines, obviously a lot of our effort to date has been around court orders, around clarification, seeking seeking the types of actions that the judiciary, that the governor's office, et cetera, that have taken, including what Richard just alluded to, we are going to begin to pivot our emphasis and start thinking about what does it look like when courts reopen. And I know that the team is going to be working on that. I'm not going to speak too much in detail, but that will include some town halls and some communications to try to capture the interest of our members and the concerns of our members, to try to understand what we need to be conveying to the courts and to others when we start to make this transition. So Richard talked about the executive branch, but clearly the judicial branch and their transition is going to be significant, both on the federal and on the state level.
Thanks, Vic. And as part of that, as Richard and Vic have mentioned, we have shared 5 question sets over the last month with the judiciary, and we are expanding that now to the local jurisdictions, as there have been a lot of changes in terms of procedures from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So we're working on compiling that information for you and bringing it to you as quickly as we can. As we all know, everything changes hour by hour, minute by minute, so we're trying to just stay on top of that for you. I also wanted to mention the publications department in the MSBA is still working hard. We're still putting out publications for print and digitally available on our website. We have upcoming titles on electronically stored information, on judgment avoidance, and criminal pattern jury instructions. Those are all still available on our website. If I could ask Lisa Kaplan now, who's the director of our Lawyer Assistance Program, to give us an update on our health and wellness portal. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. We all have to stay emotionally healthy during all of this. These are really difficult times and really stressful times. So we have a lot of health and wellness resources under the COVID page. If you scroll down, you will see a button that says mental health and substance abuse resources, or health and wellness. And on that page is a lot of resources on home workouts, yoga, online classes, emergency resources, substance abuse, 12-step programs. There's a lot of really great information on there, and check that out and recommend that to other people if you know they're struggling and dealing with some anxiety. Also, I had started a COVID support group Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. It's running 6 weeks. We've done 4 weeks. Probably going to extend that, so keep a lookout for that. That's also on the health and wellness page as well. Today we have a great program called Midday Reset from 12 to 1 with James Highland, and that is a free program. It's going to be a way to feel more grounded. He's great. If you can join us, that will be wonderful. And don't forget about the Lawyer Assistance Program. It is free, it's confidential, it's a counseling program for any type of problems. This is not just a substance abuse program. It's available to all lawyers in Maryland. We have a statewide network of counselors. If you're ever concerned about an attorney, you can reach out to me. They will never know that you've made a referral. It will not get them in trouble. You may end up saving somebody's life. And also we have financial assistance for mental health and substance abuse treatment. I've had clients use that for weekly counseling, inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment. So it is available if someone's struggling financially, which a lot of people are. That is a really great resource to have. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. I'd also like to give an update about our partner organization, the Access to Justice Commission. They've been working hard and diligently as well, connecting with the civil legal aid community, connecting with us in our submission of questions and communications to the judiciary and other partners. They also have a dedicated COVID page that is focused towards those civil legal aid organizations and also to the public to inform them of what remote resources and options they have, as well as any civil legal aid concerns as the new orders have gone into effect. So we'd ask you to just look at those resources as well.
Shall if I could jump in on that point, in addition to them convening some 50-odd organizations and launching their own public interest page, they are now in the process of working with governmental agencies to see what kind of action we can take in this time. One other thing that I wanted to mention, I wasn't sure if someone's going to mention it, so hopefully I'm not stealing someone's thunder here on one of these, and we're now up to 30 folks or so. And I see Steve Rakow, who was actually the first person that I communicated, hey Steve, this to, and we're going to be formally launching next week. So we've been doing a lot, as you're hearing, and we're trying to cover a lot of ground in just a few minutes here. But we're going to be extending our offer to our members, and frankly, to the entire profession. I want to give you guys a heads up that I think it's next week. Shally, give me a thumbs up if next week is when we're going to formally launch this. Very good. The MSBA has 150 plus CLE and on-demand products, and we're going to make 100% of that entire catalog free to all members beginning next week. And communications are going to be coming out there as part of our continuing efforts to try to support our membership. But in this regard, we're also going to attempt to support the entire profession. So we are, for a limited period of time, going to also make it available to every attorney in the state of Maryland. Believe it or not, it's a shock. Not every single attorney in the state of Maryland belongs to the MSBA, although we believe that they should. And so it's a pretty comprehensive benefit that we're going to be rolling out. And I wanted you all to be aware of that. That's above and beyond the 7,000 plus attorneys that have participated in the many webinars that we've been doing in the last 4 weeks, and as Andrea pointed out, that have happened just in the last 10 days and that I believe are scheduled for the next couple of weeks as well. So it's above and beyond that.
Thanks, Vic. I'd also like to acknowledge members of our staff that are on this call: Autumn Smith, Bernadette Simmons, Doris Barnes, and Angela Monroe, who are part of our member services team and our section liaison. So if y'all are on, you can wave on your screens or put in a little bit of chat. Thanks, Bern. And Angela, I'm going to just turn it to you for a moment to give us an update on section news, and then we'll go from there.
Thanks, Shally. Good morning, everybody. So the section is currently working on a half-day program, criminal practice in the circuit court. This program is scheduled for April 30th at 1:30. I believe we have Christine Celeste here if you want to give any more details about that event. I believe you're muted, Christine.
I had to figure out how to unmute myself. Good morning, everyone. And so the program we have coming up on the 30th is going to have 3 components. As Angela said, it is criminal practice in the circuit court. Jimenez Chicas is going to talk about immigration consequences of criminal cases. Andy Jezik is going to give a presentation on the law of confessions, and Bob Bonsev is going to give a presentation on effective jury arguments. So we think it's going to be a great program. It's going to be about a 3-hour program on Thursday afternoon. I believe it is the 30th. So if you're available, please do log in. These speakers, this was going to be a live program on the 30th, and these speakers have been very accommodating in turning it into a web-based program. So we'd love to have as many members of this section on as possible.
Thanks, Christine. We have our section chair here on the call, Sydney Butcher. Sydney, if I could ask you to say hello and give an update on what you've been up to and what you've seen with the section since COVID has started. And Sydney, I'm not sure if you're on mute right now.
It looks like he's not on mute, but maybe his mic is disabled right now. He's got to enable the mic.
Okay, Sydney, I'm going to send you a message.
Can you provide us the update via interpretive dance, Your Honor?
And while we're waiting for Sydney,
Shally, you're on mute.
I'm on mute too. While Sydney's getting organized, I wanted to open it up to section members that are here on the call. If you would like to share some of your experiences since the emergency started, and any questions or issues that you've seen in your practice, I'd open it up for discussion now. So feel free to jump in, or again, to use the chat function.
While we're waiting for questions, I would also point out that in this busy period between taxation and legal services and COVID, during the legislative session, we also worked with Delegate Barron and Senator West, and Richard could jump in with more detail. I'm going to just broad stroke at a high level, where we focused on courthouse access and the use of your bar card in order to allow you to get access to courthouses. I think that has resulted in an opening for us to work with the judiciary. They have agreed to hold a conference with us and various interested players to figure out how we can get a statewide standard. And we think that that's an important feature. Obviously not as relevant as we're not getting into courthouses now, but when things open up and we get back into the normal flow, it's gonna be an issue once again. And so, Richard, do you want to give a little more detail than that?
I do, Vic. Thank you. Basically, what happened is there are times when even when a bill fails, there is progress made, and this was a case there in that it opened up dialogue. And one of the players that we really hadn't considered the importance of their role probably as much as we should have was the Maryland Sheriff's Association, who were involved with the security at various courthouses around the state. So we'll be working with they and both the circuit courts and the district court over the summer. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. Sydney, are we able to hear from you at this time? I think we're still working on it on your end. One of the questions I had, and I would love to hear from some of our section members here today, is if you've been in court, whether it's in person or in a remote hearing, what your experience has been so far, and what jurisdiction you've been in and what kind of proceeding it was. I think it would be helpful for this team and for us to know what's going on the ground in the courtrooms and via remote proceedings. So if anybody could share, I'd welcome that at this time.
Hey everyone, I'm John Phoebus over here on the Eastern Shore. I've been in court both in Wicomico Circuit Court, Wicomico District Court in person, primarily for bond reviews. Have done some remote hearings in Somerset Circuit Court. That's pretty much all that's going on. Having mixed success with judges, some releasing people, some not releasing people. We're now doing the second round of releases. In fact, had a circuit court judge call me to invite me to file a motion for reconsideration on a denied bond motion based upon Chief Judge Barbera's more recent order. So the courts here are, it's one judge per day in Wicomico Circuit. The lawyers, it's a single state's attorney, one public defender, the private bar coming to court, all for video proceedings from the jail. That's about all that's going on. We have had scheduled some DV appeals as well in district court. So that's what's happening here on the shore.
Thanks, John. And have you been able to receive proper notice for these hearings that have continued? Has that flow of communication been relatively open?
It's primarily based upon just the people we know in the courts. The assignment commissioner in Wicomico Circuit Court, Shelley Fitzgerald, has just been emailing us directly. Kaylee in the district court has kind of created just a way of reaching out to us directly. We're having hearings before assignment notices are even being put out. But the courts are working. I mean, we're all incredibly available for court tomorrow morning, the day after that, because there's basically no other court. So, but they've been very accommodating.
And how has the remote aspect of the proceedings been for you?
I mean, we're used to having video bond hearings to begin with, so all of our jails are equipped to have those sort of proceedings. In Somerset Circuit Court, we have. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. We're just doing it by telephone.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Sydney, I think you're back.
You're back? Yes, sorry about that. Okay, well, the first thing I wanted to say is thank you to the MSBA staff that's just done a fantastic job of helping the section out. We've all been dealing with this pandemic. The second thing is I also wanted to acknowledge Christine Celeste. I know that she just highlighted it, but that April 30th program was one that was actually supposed to be in person. And pretty much on the fly, she's been able to get that changed in a format so that the section can participate in that program remotely. So thank you to Christine Celeste and the rest of the people on our edition for that. Our section council had a meeting a couple of days ago, and some of the feedback that we've received as a section is that people were concerned. At that point, we had our call on Monday. We were anticipating that the courts were going to be extended until, for another 30 days or so, but we weren't 100% sure. So most of the feedback that we've gotten from solo practitioners or government employees were, hey, what is this going to look like when we get back? What's going to happen for purposes of scheduling, things of that nature. And so we do know that even though Chief Judge Barbera has put out some different, some orders, some jurisdictions are doing things a little bit differently. And so what we've done is we put together kind of an ad hoc committee made up of private practitioners as well as government attorneys that are going to be working on soliciting questions and trying to get a letter drafted or to try to get some information to MSBA staff so that we can find out exactly how we can, as practitioners in the courts, get up and running. The main issue that we've heard about has been scheduling. Obviously, once this thing gets going and we're back in the court, handling cases and things of that nature, especially our solo practitioners are going to be running around all over the state. And what is that going to look like? So those are a couple of the different issues. If there are any other questions or concerns that people have over the next 30 days, we will be sending out another message where they can send their questions or concerns. And obviously we know that the MSBA staff has been doing that as well. So that nutshell.
Thanks, Sydney. At the start of the call, you were talking about your own experience in Anne Arundel County. Could you give this group a bit of an update about that?
I'm sorry, it broke up. Could you say that one more time?
Sure. At the start of this call, I know you were speaking about your own experience in Anne Arundel County. Could you provide this group with an update as well?
In Anne Arundel County, we're going in every 3 to 4 days. We have a rotation similar to what has been happening across the state. We're primarily handling court emergency issues. Bail reviews is our primary function while we're there. So we have starting at about 11 o'clock. We have a lot of second and third requests for bail reviews to try to get nonviolent offenders out of being detained, or if there's health issues, things of that nature. Obviously, the most recent order from Chief Judge Barbera gave more direction to the judiciary on some other factors that she can consider on what to do for purposes related. I did see while we were on the call that the Anne Arundel County Bar Association is hosting a webinar with Judge Laura Ripken with the Circuit Court. So I'm sure, and I think that's going to take place on the 23rd. So I'm sure that's to address some of the other issues that are happening in Circuit Court and how she envisions she would like things to move forward. So I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of those different things pop up across the state, with our local bars and things of that nature.
Thanks, Sydney. I know we have Andrea Terry here who spoke about the webinars that we've been putting together and how we have been grateful to the sections for their involvement in putting forward really COVID-specific webinars. So I'd open it up to discussion now. If you have any suggestions or questions, ideas about what might be some helpful programming to your specific practice area at this time. And Andrea, if you had any other comments, I'd welcome that as well.
Sure, Shally, thank you. I just want to emphasize that we really just rely on the sections for content, and it's not required that you would we can move very quickly to put these presentations on with just a day or two of advertising. Really, on the listservs, we've been able to get hundreds of people on these webinars because the topics are so urgent and relevant to the immediate circumstances. So as I said, we provide the advertising, we handle the registrations, and we have an excellent videographer, Bill Hall, who supports all delivery issues, all the management of the platforms. Really, your presenters would just have to speak, and Bill will run the platform, control the slides. We do the test run, as I said before, typically a day or two before. And so we really do as much as we can to make this as easy as possible for you to turn the information, your content, into a deliverable very quickly. And we're not talking about a 3-hour or 4-hour or full day program like we have typically done for our live CLE presentations. If you have a half an hour that you think is going to address a topic that is very germane to what's happening to your practitioners right now, we're happy to support that, and we can turn it around very quickly. And it will be available for folks to view on demand on the website after the live presentation.
Thanks, Andrea. So again, I'd open it up if anyone has any ideas or suggestions for webinars. Feel free to discuss now, or as Andrea said, you can also email her, reach out to her, or any of us with those ideas. So I see we have, looks like 25 folks on the call. And I would just invite anyone who's here. I think we have Wally's on the call. Maybe you could jump in and give us an update on how you're doing and what's new in your world.
Can I jump in on an issue that was discussed earlier? Can you hear me?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, and we'll come back to you, Wally.
The issue of admission into the courthouses and the disparity among the different counties and, in fact, between circuits and districts reminds me of an issue we had, 10, 12, 14 years ago when I was first on the Board of Governors, where there was inconsistency over whether we could bring in cell phones for scheduling and other purposes. The MSBA appointed, the Board of Governors appointed a committee, I think there were 3 of us, maybe more, who met or contacted all the administrative judges. And it took a couple of years, but we finally got consistency and the ability to bring in these little devices with us, and now they're bigger devices. We might want to consider something, or the board may want to consider something like that again. And including, besides the administrative judges, as you mentioned earlier, Victor, the sheriffs. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Very good. Agreed.
Thank you. Wally, I think we're going to go back to you if you're able.
As a solo, my life has been very boring. Other than the contact through the various webinars and the programs, watched a lot of programs on the PPP, and did try to get a one of their loan/grants. Apparently, I was not one of those who got the whatever was $249 billion that was put aside for that. It's a very much different world. I'm very used to going to the courthouse, spending anywhere between about 4 and 8 hours every week doing the lawyer referral service, answering questions, which is most of what lawyer referral service is. There's probably 1 referral to an attorney for every 5 to 10 calls that you get. And I miss that because it's the interaction that you have not only with the people that come in to visit you while you're in the courthouse, but the efforts that you can do to help people. It's very much different. I become focused on a single issue on a day, and I consider myself lucky if I can get through all the ramifications of that, whether it's a workers' comp or an automobile accident. It allows me to be more intensive because there are very few interruptions, not a lot of phone calls, not a lot of new business that's occurring. So it's frustrating, but in some respects, it's no less demanding than where it's been up to this point.
Thank you. Yes, Maeve Acosta.
Okay, is my mic on?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Sorry about the Maeve. As we're all working with our whole family at home, I've got a number of laptops, and my daughter has overtaken every one of them. This is Carlos Acosta. I'm a district court judge in Montgomery County, but today I'm Maeve Acosta. So I wanted to jump on board with some of the things that Judge Butcher has talked about and my experiences. We're doing about the same thing. Judges are sitting every 3 or 4 days in courts. So some weeks I'm in twice, some weeks I'm in once. Obviously, domestic violence, peace orders, ERPOs, but bond reviews is the big thing, and that has continued to evolve as things have gotten worse in the correctional facilities. We were originally doing, and I did bonds yesterday. We were doing bond reviews via the TV setup that we have now, the monitors. However, the jail is finding more and more people are testing positive for COVID-19. So what they're going to start doing is they're going to stop transporting people throughout the interior of the jail. They're going to be moving phones around, or maybe phones are already placed in the different pods, and then people will be talking to us no longer with a video hookup, but only audio. And then it'll take a little bit longer, or maybe a lot longer. We haven't started it yet. It's going to start today to determine how to move from telephone to telephone instead of bringing people through the whole facility as more and more people are testing positive. Lawyers are being involved. What's happening is they're contacting the clerk's office, which in itself I hear is a challenge. They don't have a full staff. I'm sure none of the courthouses have full staffs. So the phone rings a long time before somebody answers it. But if they do contact us at least the day before, even the morning before the bond review, there'll be a note on the front of the court jacket. I'm still going in. I know some courthouses, maybe folks aren't going anymore. I'm still going in. And so I'll have a court clerk there who can assist me. We'll look at the front of the jacket. We'll try to call the lawyer. Another challenge has been that when we call from the courthouse phone, it's a trunk line. If the lawyers don't recognize that number, they're not answering it. I'm going to voicemail. I'll call once or twice and then I'll stop calling, but then that attorney hasn't been involved in the hearing that they've been hired for. So please do not call screen during the time you think that judges are going to be calling you, because there's going to be a number you don't recognize, and it's been a challenge. Sometimes we've been able to call family members to call the lawyer to answer the phone because they recognize that number, but that's, just be aware of that. And don't give us a number that doesn't work. For example, we've had issues where they get, the only number that we have is their office number, and they're not at the office, so we go to their voicemail, and we're able sometimes to be able to get a cell phone number to call the lawyer at. So those are some of the things that I've seen in the last couple of weeks. As I said, it's going to continue to evolve, and certainly with Judge Barbera's latest order, I think we're going to see a lot more motions for bond reviews. Thanks.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up question to that. We've seen from some of the non-MDEC jurisdictions, like Montgomery County Circuit Court has now permitted virtual Dropbox filings for certain types of cases. And I know that Judge Barbera's order said that would also be permissible for Prince George's County and Baltimore City as well. Can you speak to anything in terms of the district court for those types of filings or electronic communications?
Sure. As you can imagine, it's very frustrating for the lawyers who are trying to accomplish their clients' needs to, in essence, feel like they can't get answers right away. They absolutely can continue to file things. Nothing's getting really looked at unless it's an emergency. It's a very limited set of circumstances. that has been pushed out through, for example, in Montgomery County, through the Montgomery County Bar Association, to let folks know these are the things we'll look at right away. These are the things we'll file it. So it's filed, it's on time. Obviously, we're following all the rules regarding letting deadlines go because you just can't really keep up with that. But just because you put emergency on the top of the motion doesn't mean it's an emergency to the court. And so that's a slippery slope. They are not accepting anything that's going to get pushed up to a judge short of the things that have already been mentioned through the bar associations regarding what a real emergency is, at least in district court. Circuit court may be the same thing. I think they've got a little bit wider parameter they're looking at.
Thanks for that.
This is Sydney. There's one other thing that Judge Acosta just highlighted that reminded me that something that we probably want to work on because it's been kind of frustrating. When we're doing the bell reviews, obviously in Anne Arundel County, not obviously, we have the video conferencing, so we don't have obviously any of the defendants in the courtroom, but we've been having a real hard time with our language line. When we've had our Spanish interpreters, that's all I've been able to use or needed to use lately, the last month and a half or so. We have them on the phone and we have our video conferencing. We'll have an assistant public defender that's in the courtroom. And then we have our prosecutor who's also on the phone, and the interpreter can't hear anybody. And it's, it's just disappointing because at this point, especially where we're at in terms of the judiciary and the criminal justice system and things of that nature, we just shouldn't really be having those problems. But those calls have been taken, those bell reviews that would probably take a little bit longer because, with an interpreter are probably taking 20 to 30 minutes because I've had to repeat what pretrial is saying to the interpreter for the interpreter to translate back to the defendant. And so that's probably one of the more frustrating things. That language line is just not working very well. So we have to, obviously this type of situation provides a platform for us to try to address those issues moving forward. But that language line is something we really need to address.
Judge Acosta, is that something you're also finding in Montgomery County?
Yes, it literally is exactly what Judge Butch said. I would have to start taking notes like an interpreter to remember everything they've said to be able to put it out for the other people who couldn't really hear each other. I will say this, Judge Butcher, it got better for us once we went to business Skype, because at that point, then what would happen was I would call everybody on business Skype, and at this point, that's what we're doing. Nobody's coming to the courtroom anymore. So I still have the defendant up on the monitor. However, the prosecutor, the assistant public defender call in, so they're on virtually. And then I will not use a phone. I will also, via business Skype, call the language line. And then I will have the language line people call directly to the jail, and then they will have a very good connection with each other. The defendant can now hear us, and the interpreter can hear them. Sometimes the lag will be the defense lawyer or the prosecutor. If they say something, the interpreter can't hear that, so I'll have to still repeat that. But there's a lot less repeating because they're really just trying to interpret what's going on virtually, and they're part of everything everybody says. So if you go to Skype, that may work.
We are the district court in Anne Arundel. We're moving to Skype on Monday, so thank you. And we actually have a call today, so I'm going to tell them about what you said about the language line calling directly to the jail.
Yes,
thank you.
That works.
Wonderful. I love this problem solving on a Friday morning. Fantastic. We have a few more minutes left here today, so I really would invite anyone else that's on the call. I see some names, but I think some people are calling in, so I'm not seeing your name. Please feel free to unmute and join us. This is really your time to connect with your section. We're always available anytime that you need us, but this is really an opportunity to hear from you and to think through any issues you're having or As Vic had mentioned earlier, in thinking about the reopening of the courts, what might be the issues that are top of your mind, other than what we've already discussed? I think while we're waiting for that, Lisa Kaplan, are you still on the line here? I'm not sure if we have Lisa anymore, but I was going to just sort of plug some of the opportunities that she'd expressed that are available on our website in terms of the wellness tools and support, especially the platform that we have today at noon. And I think as this emergency continues and as the court closure is extended, that's a really big part of the support that we'd like to provide for you. So we really would encourage you to check that out and to join her weekly support groups that she's put together for our members.
Good morning. Can I jump in with a question?
Absolutely.
Good morning, everyone. James Papermeister here. In addition to my criminal practice, I handle some motor vehicle cases. So I was wondering if anyone knows what would happen in this scenario where you take on a client who has like a reckless driving and some other serious traffic citations in Prince George's or Montgomery where we cannot electronically file. And as you know, if you don't enter your appearance within 30 days of the client's receipt of the citation, the system normally would go into declaring that an FTA suspension. In other words, the person's license would be suspended if the attorney or the person did not request a trial date within 30 days of receiving the citation. So in Montgomery and Prince George's, where they do not want to accept any filings other than emergency filings, if you can't file a line of appearance or if it's not being noticed, are those clients' licenses being suspended automatically, or is there some tolling of the suspension for those jurisdictions? What is everyone's experience with that? Because we certainly don't want to have our clients' licenses being suspended for the inability to have the court accept minor filings like a line of appearance in a traffic case or a series of traffic citations.
James, I'll jump in. I don't have experience on the minor traffic, but with respect to DUIs, I'm going to post Neil Jacobs' email and contact information to the chat. Neil is the Assistant Attorney General for the MVA. They've been very responsive on addressing issues such as clients who are trying to get the ignition interlock installed but can't get to the MVA to get the replacement license. I think Neil probably has an answer. He's a former defense attorney who became the AAG. Right. So I've been just contacting him directly, and maybe you can share to our listserv what answer you get from the information. He's been very helpful in terms of the ignition airlock questions. I'll post his contact information now.
Thank you.
Thanks. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this issue?
I don't have any thoughts on that issue, but anyway, this is Steve Rako. If anybody does panel cases, or if you know somebody who does panel cases and they've submitted a payment, I'm on the board of trustees, and apparently there's an issue right now of payments taking an extraordinary amount of time to be processed, but just let people know that they are being processed. I just spoke to Scott Reed this morning. He is the executive director for the assigned counsel and panel attorneys. And he assured me that they are being processed, but of course, people are not in the office, so they're at a much slower pace. So I just throw that out there for anybody.
Thanks, that's helpful. I know we have seen some questions about that in the listservs and just in general, people asking about those payments. I did see there were some court orders that referenced expedited ways to process the invoices. Is that something that you've heard, Steve?
I can't speak to that. I don't know anything about that.
Okay, thanks. And I see we do have Neil Jacobs' contact information here. Angela will also make sure that we'll send that out to the section after the call today. Any other thoughts or questions for us in the last couple of minutes here? Okay, well, we'll stay on for a few minutes here at the MSBA if anyone has anything to follow up with. But we really do thank you all for joining us this morning. This is the second week that we've been doing these coffee talks with sections. And as the emergency continues, we'll plan to host these again. And as Vic had mentioned, aside from our online webinar and learning presence, we're also going to try to have some more town halls to have a little more engagement on specific issues that would affect this section, and maybe join with some other sections for a larger town hall. And again, just reach out to me, reach out to Angela with anything that's on your mind, and we're here to help you. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much.
I'll jump in with another mundane question.
Oh, absolutely.
On this web platform, the layout of the screen is such that I see the person speaking in a large screen in the middle, and then I see only about 3 or 4 people on the right panel, and that's it. Is there any way, I know we have a large group here today, is there any way to get little boxes so I can essentially see about 15 people at one time? Just a technical question.
Yes, there is. And actually, Angela, if you scroll up to the top of the chat in the upper right corner, if you click on that box, the fourth message down is a link to a Google Chrome extension. So if you download that and reload your system, you should be able to see, I think I have 16 people that are showing here.
Hey, Mr. Montgomery, did you get a chance to see that question that Mimi Tian put in, specifically asking if you know if there's going to be for sure, a special session in May?
I'm just seeing it now. She was incognito there for a second. Hi, Mimi.
Hi.
Well,
Hi, Richard.
I've heard conflicting things. I know that the COVID-19 work group of the General Assembly has been working on a variety of matters, dealing with school closures, business matters, just you name it, health matters. However, there does not seem to be any interest on the House side from what I'm telling you. The Senate has been the more active chamber so far. I was in the Maryland Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday, and one person was talking about they work with the Anne Arundel County Medical Center folks who've been monitoring the whole COVID progression in Maryland, and they were expecting that in Anne Arundel County the spike would be sometime in early June. That was when they were expecting their peak. They were talking about a special session at the end of May. Now, I believe because of when the General Assembly adjourned, I believe the governor has until May 7th to sign or veto bills. Now, this is going to be an odd year because I don't think the governor is going to bother having public bill signings. I think the overwhelming majority of bills that passed are just going to go into law without his signature. And I don't think they're going to bother with vetoing a lot of little bills on policy matters. I think most of the governor's vetoes are going to be on budgetary issues, bills that passed that had large fiscal notes, which may include things involving Kerwin. So it's going to be interesting to see what the governor's veto package looks like and whether the General Assembly is going to feel compelled to try to come back and override any of those vetoes. But we're in such uncharted territory. One of the things that we had noticed is that there are a couple of legislatures that have tried to reconvene via social distancing. And for example, in Arkansas, I think the Senate was coming back to the state capitol, or considered coming back to the state capitol, but the House, the larger chamber, was going to meet in the basketball arena. So I know they're looking at all the options that they have for convening if they feel like they need to. But right now, I just don't get the sense they're feeling a pressing need to come back. unless there's some new component of the pandemic that we just haven't seen yet.
Richard, do we have a sense of timing on that at all, or it's open?
It's somewhat open. But one of the other criticisms they had toward the end of the session, when they were basically doing a lot of business in hastily convened hearings and closed voting sessions, was there was a lot of criticism from the general public that they were doing this star chamber sort of activity. And the General Assembly is very sensitive to the notion of shutting down public input. So I think they would be very concerned or very sensitive about trying to convene if the public couldn't be involved. I mean, certainly, they have video for the bill hearings, and now in the House they have some floor proceedings video cast, but that's not a two-way function. So I think it's going to take a lot for them to come in.
Thanks, Richard. Angela, are there any other questions in the chat? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything before we conclude.
No,
on the post of the Chrome extension, is that something you have to do every single time?
No.
Or is that something you download to your computer? So once this goes, that's going to go away. Can that be then sent so we have that Chrome extension to?
Yes. Yeah, we'll make sure Angela
Thank
will
you.
send that out to you. But once you have it on your computer, it'll follow you.
Okay.
And we'll all
Thank
follow you. all 25 of us, or however many of us, for joining this morning.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, well, I think that's it, Angela. We've gotten most of the questions, and as we've said, we're still collecting questions. We're still communicating to the judiciary, governor's office, local courts, and really, we're here to get as many answers as we can, and to raise any concerns and suggestions as well on your behalf. So please reach out to us, and we'd love to get together in this way, or smaller groups, larger groups, whatever you need for our support. Thanks.